This episode of the podcast is brought to you by The Seller's Resource, available at thesellersresource.com. The Seller's Resource is an all-audio content library of Etsy tutorials about how to sell on Etsy, but also news, updates, and information coming out from Etsy for Etsy sellers, information that you would need to be aware of or just to know to stay on top of what's going on at Etsy and with Etsy as an Etsy seller. Again, that's The Seller's Resource, available at thesellersresource.com, and there's a link to it in the show notes for this episode. Enjoy.
Welcome to the Etsy Conversations podcast, featuring inspiring interviews with Etsy shop owners, hosted by Ijama Elazu.
Hi, and welcome to the Etsy Conversations podcast. I'm your host, Ijama, and I thank you for joining me for another episode. This week, my guest is Crystal, and Crystal runs the Etsy shop Rustic, Chic. She's been on Etsy since 2011. She's almost pushing 10,000 sales, which is a great achievement with 5-star reviews, over 2,000 of them. So I'm really excited to talk to Crystal. Crystal, thank you so much for being my guest and welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Jama. Thank you for having me.
Oh, you're so welcome. How excited are you to almost be at that 10,000 sale mark? Is that something you even look at, or you just take it as it comes?
In the beginning, it was something that I obsessed over. I would look at it every day. And now I really don't notice. And I think at the beginning of the year or earlier last year, Etsy messaged me saying, "Congratulations on 8,000 sales."
Whoa.
And I was just like, oh yeah, huh? Cool.
Oh man, I know it must take, you have to get to a certain point where after a while you stop looking at that number, because I know, as a seller, I'm still obsessed with that number. Like, okay, is it moving? Am I getting another one? Can I add, can I keep adding to that number of sales? But I guess when you hit we're recording this now in April. And so that means in just the first quarter of the year, you've been able to do almost 2,000 sales, which is fantastic. So we'll get into all of that. But before we do, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So I am a wife and a mother and a big nerd, and I would call myself a serial entrepreneur. Oh. So a serial entrepreneur to me is somebody that loves making and learning new skills, but they tend to move on after learning those new skills.
Yes.
For an example, so I used to love watching soap making videos, and I thought that looks so fun. I could do that. And, I made a small batch and it did really well and everyone loved them. And I opened a new, soap shop, but it was doing okay, but Rustic Chic was doing so well. I just didn't have time for a second shop, and I ended up giving that to my sister.
Oh, cool.
Just, learning how to sew and embroider and crochet and screen print and that makes a serial entrepreneur. I just love learning new things.
Yes.
But you move on.
I know. I know the feeling, because, that learning stage is, I think, the most exciting, the most interesting, because everything is new and you're creating and you want to see if anyone is going to catch on to your idea. And then sometimes when they do, then the excitement wears down, like, okay, so people do like this. Yeah, I kind of figured. Now what next? And then you move on. So I know it's almost a sad condition to have, because I feel like that sometimes, like, okay, I've done this, I've achieved this, but now I want that rush again.
Yeah. My husband, when he sees me getting into that mode, he calls it, he says I'm going down a rabbit hole. Like I'm Alice and I'm just falling down this rabbit hole of creativity and learning a new skill.
Yeah. And so now, Le Rustic Chic, what do you sell?
So I mostly sell custom wire wedding cake toppers. Those are my big sellers.
Yeah.
But I also do portraits out of wire. Like I could do your face. I can do bookmarks, and around Christmas I'll put out ornaments and lots of other things.
Huh. So would you call this wire art?
I would. I use that as a hashtag in
Oh,
my Instagram.
oh, cool. How did you learn how to do this?
Uh, Really, it was almost like out of necessity.
Huh.
So, I mean, ever since I opened my Etsy account, I fantasize about working from home, having my own income, being independent. And I mean, you get that idea in your head and you just can't sleep. Like that's how much you're thinking about it.
Yeah.
And I know everyone says, do something because you love it and don't do it for the money. But in the beginning, I mean, my husband had just lost his job and he was going to school full time. And I was very much in it for the money.
Yeah.
I mean, I researched, what is selling on Etsy that I could make today and list it and start making money. And it was a custom bridal hanger.
Really?
Uh-huh.
Now, how did you do that research?
Well, it took a few days. And you are looking at things that are trending. So back in 2011, Etsy had on their homepage their editor's choices. Like now it's kind of hard to find the editor's choices. But back then they were just right on the front page and they were showcasing things that were popular at the time. And it was right in the middle of wedding season. And I saw they had bridal hangers in the wedding section of their editor's choices. And it was just, to me, it looked so simple. It was just a wooden hanger and some wire and maybe a ribbon, and that was it. And I knew that personalized and custom items on Etsy sell really well. People love, saying their name on something or having their dog's face on something. So I knew that is what I needed to do. And so I made one, and it wasn't that great in the beginning. It was pretty awful. But I got better. And now the hangers that I have in my shop, brides will message me, "Oh my God, this is the cutest hanger on Etsy and I need to have it for my wedding next week. And what can you do?"
Wow. So when you get an order like that, I assume that's like a rush order, or is your standard turnover time that quick?
So typically my custom orders take a little longer because I have to customize them. So they take maybe 1 to 2 weeks. But if a customer is willing to purchase a rush order or a fee, it's $10, and that will jump their order to the front of the queue.
Okay.
And so, that last minute bride who really needs a wedding cake topper or whatever, she can add that on, and those typically ship next day.
Okay. And then just for you yourself, do you build in buffer times with everything else that you're making that you have in line to make for when you get these rush orders, so that you're not falling behind because you took a rush order? Does that make sense?
It does make sense. So if I had, my regular custom orders, maybe I have 12 to do today, and I get a couple of rush orders, I will just add those on to my regular orders so that I don't fall behind with the other custom orders.
Okay. And $10 for a rush sounds very reasonable to me, I think.
Oh yeah, people love that they have that option because
Yeah,
a handmade takes time, and I mean it's
absolutely.
not Amazon, so
No.
you can't get that prime shipping, but
Yeah,
it's close.
yeah. And typically, because you serve the wedding industry, well, not solely, but it seems like a large bulk of your customers are people who are preparing for a wedding. Do you tend to make multiples of something, or are you making one very special item that's for a couple's wedding?
It's mostly custom items.
Okay.
So, I have them tell me what their preferences are. They write them in the note to seller area at checkout.
Yeah.
And I print out all my orders for that day, and their notes are right there in front of me, and everything's in arm's reach. So I kind of just go with the flow, like, oh, I want this word, or we want these initials, or
Yeah.
and I'm able to just do it right then.
Can a buyer who is placing an order request a specific type of font or script that you use, or do you just take your own creative liberty and use any type of script or font that you think will work for that particular phrase or whatever it is they're asking for?
I have had brides contact me and say, this is the font that we use on our invitations. Can you mimic that in our cake topper? And I can definitely do that. It's easy for me now. But if they don't mention that they have a preference, I'll usually just do whatever I feel looks good.
Okay. Nice. Now, how did you, well, no, we talked about that. Oh, now I remember what I wanted to mention. You mentioned the Etsy's editor's choice. And you're right. With the new layout of the Etsy website, it's not as easy to see where that is, but I believe Etsy still does that. And there's an email that they send. I don't know if you received that email, but every once in a while, I know I've received an email where it's the editor's choice, and they'll talk about different things and just highlight different products. I never read it with the eye of looking out for what I could carry, but I'm glad that you mentioned that, because that would be a good way for someone who's thinking of expanding their product line to look at what's trending on Etsy, what the editors see as, at least for the next few months or next year or so, being what the market is demanding. And what I can do is I'll go through the Etsy website. I don't remember where or how I signed up to that email, but I will see if I can find the link and then put it in the show notes for this episode. So if anyone isn't receiving the editor's choice email from Etsy, you can just sign up and then be getting that. I think that's how they do it now, because it's not very easy to locate right on the website.
Right. I'm pretty sure I've read somewhere, maybe Etsy Success or something, that they're really trying to focus on personalizing their emails when they are suggesting products to you. So instead of sending out a lot of editor's choice emails, they really like to say, here's, 5 things that are trending on Etsy that we think you might like. And, it's based on your search history in Etsy and your favorites and things like that.
Yeah. And I have to say, I did notice that. And I like that. But sometimes I found that if I was shopping for something for someone and then Etsy remembers that I did that search, sometimes the recommendations are, it's past that. I'm like, yeah, I did search for that, but it wasn't really for me, it was for someone, and that's over now. I want new recommendations. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it makes total sense. I mean, I was redoing my logo recently. I mean, I haven't updated it across the board, but I was just designing it in Photoshop, and I thought this would look really good on a stamp, for my packaging. And so I was looking on Etsy for custom stamps. And I was going to buy one, and then I didn't because, my logo isn't ready. And I keep getting emails and suggestions for stamps.
Yeah. Yes, I know. I do too. And sometimes I think, should I just take the time and go and just spend a couple of hours looking at looking at things that are completely different from what they're sending me now, so that I stop getting the suggestions that aren't as relevant anymore. But it's not that serious, I don't think. Not for me anyway.
Yeah.
So when you first opened your shop, Crystal, you said that it was about the money. And I'm glad you said that, because I think more and more nowadays, more people are coming on to not just Etsy, but starting their own businesses with the intent to turn it into something that's profitable and not just a nice way of making money from a hobby. So when you came on, you had a strong incentive to be successful. What do you think would have been your backup plan had Etsy not worked out? Did you investigate other online platforms to sell on, or were you just in a frame of mind of, it just had to work and you would do whatever it took?
I was very motivated. I mean, I worked a little part-time at my parents' business. They owned a burial at sea business. It's called Ashes on the Sea. And
Whoa.
yeah, so I mean, I did that part-time, and I did that for a few years while I was, up and running with my Etsy shop. And I mean, I would even bring orders to work and work on them while I was on the phone with customers. And I don't really miss the work. I mean, I love seeing my parents every day, but I did not love working in an office. And I am really grateful, though, that I got all that time. It really honed my customer service skills.
Mm-hmm.
And you'd be surprised how similar a bride who is freaking out is similar to someone who recently lost a loved one, and how your tone of voice and your assuredness puts them at ease. So, I mean, I am glad for that job.
So, Crystal, when you opened your Etsy shop, do you remember how soon after you were up and running you got that first sale? And then after the first sale, did you have to wait a while till the next sale, or did things just pretty much keep rolling on from then?
Right. So my first sale was actually my sister.
Oh.
I listed the hanger that I had made for 20 cents just so that she could buy it and leave a review.
Oh, yeah.
And she did do that. So I had a 5-star review, one sale, 5-star review. And then she showed her friend that hanger, and her friend wanted to buy another hanger. And she also left a review. And I mean, I do count those, but there's always that voice in the back of your head, like, oh, they're my friends and family. They're obligated to support me. It doesn't count. But people really did want what I was putting out there, because a couple days later, I remember I was making dinner, and I was startled so bad because my phone made that ka-ching sound from Etsy. And I don't make them anymore, but I had been making these solar lights with mason jars.
Ooh.
Yeah, they were really pretty. They are such a hassle to ship. And it was my first real order, and it was an international order. So someone in France had ordered 8 of these solar mason jar lights.
Wow.
And it was also my first real hard-earned lesson about shipping.
Yeah, I was just going to ask. Yeah. What happened with that one?
Oh, well, so let me just say, shipping companies treat your mail like garbage.
No.
I mean, they just do. They need to move that mail, and they need to move it fast. And so your box or whatever you're shipping, it's going to get dropped. It's going to get maybe kicked, maybe drop kicked.
Maybe thrown.
Thrown. You really need to go overboard in protecting your customers' purchases. So I got a photo in my Essie's convos like maybe a month later after he finally got it, because it took forever.
Oh, no.
And they were all shattered. I mean, they were obliterated. And I said, I am so sorry. And I just had to eat the cost, and I reshipped them. And he did leave a 5-star review just based on my customer service. And, the next time I shipped them, it was so much better. Now I'm not stingy on the packaging.
Yeah.
Work the cost of that bubble wrap or tissue paper or foam or whatever into the price of your item. And if you're confident that you could throw that across the room, or shake it and you don't hear anything moving around, it's good to go.
Yeah. Wow. That's, well, first of all, I would freak out if I saw that picture of everything shattered. I can't imagine what was going through your head. And also being such a new seller too, that you didn't just run the other way. But anyway, yes. So after that, you started working the cost of your packaging materials into your price. Does that mean you now offer free shipping?
I don't offer free shipping. There's a lot of reasons why I don't. I feel like people who are shopping on Etsy are looking for something unique. They're looking for something handmade. They know it's not Amazon. Usually they know free shipping isn't really free. Yeah. So with Amazon, it might be a $5 item, but with Prime, quote unquote, free shipping, it's a $10 item. And people understand that on Etsy. I mean, sometimes I do have an offer where if you order over $40 worth of product, your item will ship free. But that is something that I have worked the cost into the product. Okay, that makes sense. So on the topic of shipping, so when that happened, you had to go back and figure out how to properly package your fragile items. Do you mind if I ask where you found good shipping supplies, and if you still use them, and who they are, so that if others are still on the hunt for good shipping supplies providers, we can share that with them? Definitely. So some things I order off of Amazon because they just have the best deals, and it comes really fast. But things like bigger cardboard boxes, I would get from uline.com. Okay. I don't know if you've heard of it, but it's uline.com. Yes. And they sell everything that you could need for shipping an item. They even have examples on how to ship fragile items. And they even have, like, say for the solar mason jars, I would put foam on the bottom of the package, and then I would put a corrugated insert into the center that, it has those openings for each individual jar, and then I put more foam on the top. Oh, and you learned that from Uline? Yes. Wow. I do know Uline, and that's who I use. That's where I buy my shipping supplies from as well.
And one of the things I like about them is, like you said, they'll make recommendations. If you ever talk to them when you place your order, by the way, their customer service is so good. I've never had any problems when I've called them. I haven't placed any orders online. I always call. And so they keep track of what you order. So they know, what you have. And sometimes they'll say, well, you haven't ordered this in a while. Do you need any more of that? Or, it sounds like you're shipping X, Y, and Z. Have you tried using this as well? I mean, I know it's all an upsell because they want to make that sale, but still, it's useful. And I do like Uline. So I will include a link to Uline and Amazon for anyone who wants to check them out. And you're right, they have so many things I didn't know I would need to ship products. They have them. So they're good.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, are all the wire creations that you make all strictly, and not just the wire creations, because I know in addition to the toppers, you make other things. I know you have a planner section in your shop, but is everything that you make always inspired by your customers, or are there some things that you just make because you're drawing inspiration from somewhere else for a particular product?
So, excuse me, my inspiration comes from everywhere. My mom has a really green thumb and she loves nature, and her Instagram is full of her backyard and birds and flowers. And I remember seeing, she posted a picture of the tulips growing in her front yard, these bright red tulips. And I thought that would look great in wire. How great would it be to give your mom something she could put on her wall, and it's, red tulips with the red wire for the bud, and then green wire for the stem and the leaves, and they won't wilt, and that would be so great. And I'll put all those little ideas in my sketch journal, and then I'll go back and I'll say, oh yeah, Mother's Day's coming up. I should make one and photograph it and put it in my shop. But other times it does come from my customers, and they'll say, oh, I saw this on Pinterest, could you do something similar? And if a customer ever sends me something like, oh, I saw another seller sells these, could you do one as well? I'll let them know that I don't like to copy other people because they put their hard-earned time and talent into making that item.
Yeah.
But I could, do something like a fan art of that item. So something similar that plays off that item but isn't a direct copycat of that.
Right.
Because, you wouldn't want somebody doing that.
Oh, no.
To you.
Yes. Yeah. And it's good that you tell them that you don't want to copy someone else's design, because I think sometimes people will ask without realizing that actually what they're asking for is for you to just go and copy someone else's design. It sometimes makes me wonder why they wouldn't order it from the other person. But on the one hand, it could be a customer loyalty thing because they've shopped with you and they want to support you. But there is that fine line of saying, well, I support you, but now go do what this other person is doing, but do it for me.
Right. And you want that customer loyalty, but also you want them to know. So say you have a line of products and your competitor has something else, you want your customers to be able to differentiate between your items and your customer's items. So if you have a particular style, your customers are going to recognize that, and they can come to you and say, hey, I kind of like this, but can you do it in your style?
Yeah.
And I have had people come to me with things like that, usually when they don't want to order from one of my competitors and they want to order that same item from me, it's because they're local. So, oh, I'm in Oregon and I want to support another Oregonian, so that's why I'm going to order from you. Okay,
that makes sense. So, Crystal, what do your days look like in a typical week? Do you divide up how you spend your time between creating or coming up with new ideas, as well as handling all the administrative aspects of running your business?
Yeah. Well, when you run your own business or you have an Etsy shop, it's just you. Like, it sounds so great, and I'm not trying to dissuade anyone from becoming an Etsy seller, but really the only con about it for me is you're the one doing everything. You're the janitor to the CEO. and it can get very lonely sometimes, but I have my days are very loosely structured, and I absolutely love it. I'm not a very like rigid or scheduled person. So my day just kind of typically starts with my 2-year-old climbing in bed with me, and then I'll make breakfast and we'll have coffee. Well, I'll have coffee, and I put the previous day's work out on the porch for the postman to collect for me.
Oh, cool.
And then it's kind of free time with social media and checking customer emails or messages and getting back to them. And then I'll jump right into my orders, and I'm always interrupted. So, sometimes my 2-year-old needs to go to the bathroom, or he just needs a hug or something. So something that would usually take me 2 hours, it'll take me 5 hours.
Yeah. And it's funny when you mentioned your 2-year-old having to take care of what he needs. In addition to running your business, you're also the daycare, it sounds like.
Oh, yeah.
So you're running like two operations there during the day.
Well, my husband and I kind of tag team it. So, because he works from home too, he's a indie video game developer. So, while he needs to concentrate and get in the zone on what he's working on, I'll take the little one and make sure, or try to make sure he's not interrupted. And I don't really mind being interrupted that much. So I can work and juggle the toddler and everything else that's going on. And we just kind of work together. It's great having two parents, I think, who are home. I know not everybody has that opportunity or that luxury.
Yeah. And and I know this is an aside, but you mentioned that your husband is a game developer or game designer. Is that kind of similar to what you do, as in he's constantly also creating? I shouldn't say constantly, but there is a creative aspect to what he's doing as well.
Oh, definitely. His brain is just wired for video games. So he's always thinking about them. He'll see, something in a show or have a dream or something. And he has a little journal that he writes down all his game design ideas, or wouldn't a character like this be great in a video game? And we're really similar that way.
Yeah, that must be nice. Do you get to try out his video games? Do you get to give them test runs? Oh, yeah,
all the time. Right now, he's actually working on a board game, and it's called Dead Sprint. And so he's not really the crafty kind, like working with your hands kind of creator. He's more of digital creator. So I helped him make a physical prototype of that game. Well, a couple of them actually. And we'll have people over, or we'll go over to other people's house, and we'll go through the rules, and we'll see how well it test plays. And there's a lot that goes into it.
Oh, interesting. All right. If anyone is interested more in what he's working on and video game design, I will have links to that too. So I'll talk with Crystal and we'll link up there if you're interested. I just think it's intriguing, people who create video games and games in general, for others to enjoy. So when you're working on your business, what's your primary motivation? In the beginning, I know you mentioned you had to make money because of the situation that you were in. now, is it still as much about the money, or now have your priorities kind of shifted? I mean, I know there's always going to be an aspect of profitability and striving for that. But do you have like a different perspective on running your business now that you've been at it for a number of years and have a system in place?
Oh, definitely. I mean, you always have in the back of your head, especially if you're usually the sole provider, you're the one who's making the money, you're the one who's paying the rent. You always have that in the back of your head. Oh, I got to pay rent.
Yeah.
In the beginning, it was so much more than that. It was, are we going to get kicked out of this place because we can't afford to pay our bills? Yeah. And now, my Etsy shop has paid for us to live in a house and a new car and all this stuff. So now, it's in the back of my mind, oh, I have to pay this bill on Tuesday, but that's not what I'm focusing on anymore. And I'm not getting those sweat stresses from worrying about it so much. And it's such a relief.
Yeah. That's amazing that that you've been able to achieve that type of and that level of financial freedom just from selling on Etsy. And I hope someone hears that and feels a sense of encouragement, just knowing that it's possible even in 2018, even with everything that's going on with Etsy, because anyone who's been around for a while, and you have since 2011, so you've seen many changes, I'm sure, on the platform. What keeps you hanging on, other than the fact that you know that it's working for you? What else just gives you that confidence to stay on the platform?
Well, a big, I know this seems kind of, I don't know if it's superficial or if it's bragging or something, but I've been featured in a couple of bridal magazines. And that was when I was like, you love me, you really love me. And it really motivates you, especially, before I started this business, I didn't have a job and I was depressed and I didn't want to even get up in the morning some mornings. And now I'm just like, I've lost 100 pounds probably because of my shop. And that is because I got my energy back and I got confidence and I started a ketogenic diet.
Oh, wow.
And you can go look on my personal Instagram, but
you've been documenting it?
Sorry?
Were you documenting it?
Oh, I was. Oh,
wow.
yes.
Okay.
Yeah, you could see when I was 300 pounds and I had bags under my eyes, and now, I look younger, and I contributed all to the motivation that my Etsy shop gave me, and just that determination, like, okay, it's working. Wow. I'm going to make the rest of my life fall into place, just like I made my Etsy shop fall into place.
That is amazing. I don't think I've heard that before. Congratulations, first of all. And Crystal is being modest by saying she's been featured in a couple of bridal magazines. She's been featured in about 10 bridal magazines, and that's such an accomplishment. And I just want to talk about that for a little, just for a little bit, because that's huge. Weddings are such a big industry, and when you capture the eye of publications that brides in particular are consuming solely because they're looking for vendors and products and things for their weddings, that can be a huge boost to your business. Did you do anything in particular that you're aware of to attract the attention of these bridal magazines, or was it just solely from just doing what you do on Etsy on a regular basis that they found you?
So a couple of years ago, I had an epiphany really to send a few of my signature cake toppers to the editor of a couple of these bridal magazines. And I sent maybe 10 of them out, and it really wasn't that much of a big cost to me. And only one of them actually put it in their magazine. But it did pick up my shop's, view rate and order rate, not by a lot. So I would say if you want to be featured, you really need to just work on your product, make sure you are keeping your items with what is in trend that year. So last year, copper was really big. So I was really pushing my copper cake toppers, and that is another one that got put into a magazine. What else?
How do you, if I can just ask, how do you stay on top of what's trending in your niche? And I know that's going to be different for everyone, but do you subscribe to bridal magazines and just keep abreast of what they're talking about? Or do you go for bridal shows or lists or conferences for bridal or wedding vendors to see what's trending for, given periods of the year? Well, I shouldn't say periods of the year, but, different years.
Right. So I do not purchase or look at bridal magazines unless I'm in them. But and I've only been to one bridal show. It's just that you really need to know your target market. And my target market isn't really the type of person who would go to a bridal show necessarily or buy a bunch of bridal magazines. So I like to follow my target market and wedding photographers and things like that on Instagram. And if I see in my feed something is trending, and how I figure out if something's trending is if I see it twice, it's kind of a coincidence. And if I see it 3 times, it's a trend. I needed to jump on it.
Oh, interesting. And the nature of what you make is such that you're able to change quickly enough with the trends when you see something.
Definitely.
Okay.
Yeah, a couple of years ago for bridal hangers, it was really trendy to see a burlap flower on the hanger. And now I've been seeing, all across the board on in the wedding industry is florals. Everyone's really into florals. So instead of a burlap flower, I'm putting flowers on my hangers.
Like real flowers?
Not real flowers, but
okay.
They look real, but
okay,
like
real. Like the silk versions or something like that.
Exactly.
Oh, nice. Okay. Very good. And while we're on the topic of Instagram and following, let's talk about the strategy you have for Instagram. So obviously you're using it not just to share what you're doing and get the word out about your products and drive traffic back to your shop, but you're also using it for market research as well. When you're on Instagram, how do you typically spend your time? How do you divide up your time between doing market research and coming up with new ideas for products to carry, and then also getting word out about what your products are and just driving traffic back to your shop?
Right. So I have a personal account and a business account.
Oh, okay.
So on my business account is where I follow kind of trends. And It's really an ongoing throughout the day kind of process
Okay.
because I'll just browse. I mean, if you're just in the bathroom, you can browse
Yep.
and you call it market research.
Yeah, let's
Um,
call it that.
it's really easy. I really don't find myself, because my schedule is so loose, I don't
Mm,
find myself sitting down and saying, okay, I'm going to do market research right now. I
okay.
mean, I would do that if you are researching what hashtags to use. I would
Mm,
definitely sit down and say, okay, I have this product. I need to research the hashtags that my target market are using for this product. I would
okay.
definitely sit down and do market research for that, like dedicated time.
Okay. Okay. And is Instagram your primary or your social media platform of preference?
It really isn't. It's more for fun. I don't get a lot of orders or traffic from Instagram.
Okay.
Um, the most traffic I get from a social media platform, I would say, is Pinterest.
Oh, okay. And I know I hear that quite a lot. Um, do you have a particular strategy for Pinterest, or is most of what you do just using that pin it button that you can click on when you create a listing in Etsy?
I do have kind of a strategy. I've even tried their promoted pins,
Oh,
and that
yeah.
was just money right down the toilet because I was getting those views anyway, and then I was
Oh,
just paying for those views that I was, those clicks that I was already getting anyway. So I stopped doing the promoted pins.
okay.
But I would say, I mean, if I could give you a couple tips for using Pinterest,
Yeah.
it would be, so say you have wedding items
Mm-hmm.
and you want to promote some of your items, you can have a couple different wedding boards, like a rustic wedding board and a beach wedding board. And in those boards, don't just be pinning your own stuff. I would say pin everything for that beach board that you like about beach weddings, and then maybe 20% of the pins in that board can be your items. And see, and then that way, people will want to follow that board who are
Mm,
interested in beach weddings, and they won't feel like it's just a giant advertisement for your shop and your product.
okay. And the other products that you recommend pinning, should they all be from other Etsy shops or just anywhere across the internet related to that particular board?
I would say anywhere. I mean, you wouldn't want to. You're not going to follow a board if every single thing that's pinned has a dollar sign attached to it.
Oh, good point. Good point. Yeah. Okay. And so then that would mean pinning things from blogs where they talk about that particular product group or topic, as well as things for sale for those people who are actually looking to buy something.
Right.
Okay. Do you live pin? And by live pin, I mean, do you manually add things to your board in real time, or do you use any tools for pinning and repinning and scheduling pins?
I do live pin. I try to pin at least 5 to 10 things a day just so that your followers see that you're active in pinning.
Okay.
And I mean, they don't have to all be your products, but if
Mm-hmm.
I do come out with a new product, I definitely will pin it, you know, once to one of the boards. And then maybe the next day I'll
Mm-hmm.
pin a bunch of other things and I'll pin that same item to a different board.
Okay. And do you use the Etsy pin tool, or do you do it some other way?
I use Chrome on my PC, so
Okay.
I have an extension. What's it called? It's called the Pin It extension for Chrome, I think.
Okay.
Oh, it's the Pinterest Save button.
Okay.
And you can use it in Chrome, and it allows you to hover over any image on the internet, and then you just click save, like a little button will pop up in the top right, and you just click save, and it'll save that image and any description it has attached to that image as well.
Okay. And when you say it will save it, will it ask you what board to pin it onto, or it just saves it on a clipboard?
Oh, it'll ask you which board you want to save it
Okay.
to, or maybe you want to start a new board. It's really easy.
Okay. All right. So Pinterest, Instagram, and you're also on Facebook. What are you doing on Facebook?
Well, not a lot. Usually, I like to hit 2 social media birds with one stone with Instagram and Facebook, because you can connect them. So if you have a Facebook business page, link it to your Instagram business page, and then everything you're posting on Instagram will automatically post to Facebook.
Okay.
And I really like to use that feature. And Instagram just came out with the pin your product feature. And so how to use the pin your product feature is, and you don't even need to have 10,000 followers now. It's anyone with a business account.
Mm-hmm.
I really recommend that people do this. If you go to your Facebook business page and you go to the shop tab or the shop section, you can add products in there. You can add categories. And then maybe a day later, if your Instagram is linked to your Facebook, you'll get the option to start tagging your products in your posts on Instagram. And it's so much better than having your posts all say, link to this item in the description in my bio.
Yeah,
and then they have
link
to
and profile.
go to your, right. So then they have to go to your profile, click on your Etsy shop link, then search for that item in your Etsy shop. It's kind of tedious, and you really want to make it almost stupid easy for your customers to purchase your item. So instead of having to do that, now they're scrolling their feed and they see that item and they click right on it, and it goes right to that listing on Etsy.
Wait, and this is from Instagram?
Yeah, from Instagram.
Oh, this is brand new news to me, because up until now, Instagram has only allowed you one live click, which is the link in your profile.
Mm-hmm.
So you're saying that if you link your Facebook and your Facebook page and your Instagram account, your Instagram business account.
Right. So in your Facebook business page that you want to link your products to on Instagram, you need to go in through Facebook and link your Instagram on Facebook. Then you need to manually add your products onto your shop page on your Instagram or on your Facebook page. And then, it takes a while for it to all sync. So I wouldn't try pinning a product for maybe a day.
Okay.
But eventually you'll get this pop-up on your Instagram business page that says, I forget what it says, but basically, that you now have this option to tag your photos that you're posting to Instagram with the direct links to your products.
Crystal, how did you figure this out?
I follow a lot of other businesses on Instagram.
Oh, yeah?
And I kept seeing these little, buy it now, and you kind of tap on the image and it'll give like a little blurb about what the product is and how much it is, and then you can click on that blurb and it'll take you right to being able to purchase the item. And I was like, I want this for my Instagram.
Yeah, that's amazing.
So yeah, and Facebook actually has a how-to tutorial kind of thing if you Google it, and it'll walk you through all the steps.
Okay. And is this only applicable to physical products, or can someone who has a digital product also use this feature?
Definitely, if you have a digital product on Etsy and it's like an instant download,
Yeah.
you can still add that item to your Facebook shop and be able to link it from your Instagram.
Okay. Crystal, thank you so much. That is huge. Yeah, because I know one of the downsides of Instagram, and I know some people have figured out, well, not figured out, but some people do well with selling their products through Instagram, just by posting them. Typically, they have a following that, is just rabidly waiting for them to come out with new things. And as soon as they post, they can sell and just direct people to the shops. So it sounds like a much easier way to make that sale and make it easier for the end user without you having to say, okay, DM me, I'll DM you a direct link to the listing and then you can hop over there and buy it and all whatnot. So that's
Right.
good news.
I really want them to roll out the stories feature on Instagram where you could swipe up and have a custom URL for your customers or whoever to swipe up, and then it'll go directly to the link that you provided.
Yeah.
But I think right now it's only available for business accounts with 10,000 or more followers.
Yeah. Yes, I know. I know exactly what you're talking about. And I'm hoping for the same thing too. And actually 10,000 sounds, I mean, it's a lot, but I for some reason, I don't know why I had 50,000 in my head and I just completely wrote that off. I was like, I'm never going to get 50,000 followers on Instagram. So I'm never going to get the swipe up feature.
But you know what?
What?
It's just like with the orders, I never thought, oh, I'm never going to get 10,000 orders, but here I am a few years later and I'm about to get there. So yeah, you'll get there.
Okay. Thanks, Crystal. Now, do you also blog as well, or right now social media is where you're focusing most of your marketing efforts?
Yeah. So I own my own URL. So it's rusticchic.com, but currently it just forwards to my Etsy shop. And I really should have my own website and a blog, and I always keep meaning to do it. And I recommend others to do it.
Yeah.
And it's like a do what I say, not what I do kind of thing. And I just get so busy with everything. It just gets put back on the back burner. But I'm currently going back and forth between choosing Shopify or WordPress. I'm torn between the two.
Yeah. Well, if I can speak a little bit on both of those, WordPress is great if you want your main focus to be blogging and then e-commerce to be secondary to that. And then it's the reverse with Shopify. If you want your e-commerce shop to be your main focus and blogging to be secondary to that, then Shopify would be the way to go. Either way, it's going to be, a whole new second business for you. Well, not second business per se, but they're both really time consuming. And I shouldn't say both. I mean, running an Etsy shop, running an e-commerce shop and a blog, because then you have to worry about, which you're probably already focusing on Etsy with tags and keyword optimization, but then with the blog, even more so, with trying to draw traffic in and all whatnot. So it's definitely a good way to branch out, but it's going to add so much more work to your plate. Not that it won't be worth it, but
it's an investment in time, definitely.
Yeah. I often think it would be so nice to get to a point where I could outsource some of that. But then I feel like there's some things I just don't want to outsource because then it's not me.
Yeah.
But then
I definitely have a problem with that. I mean, last year I was so busy during wedding season. I was thinking about hiring someone just to come in and help me respond to messages and help me package my orders. But in the end, I am too much of a control freak and I need to be able to do everything and have my hand in every aspect of my business. And
Yeah.
I just, like, you will pry parts of my business out of my dead cold fingers. I I wish that I could hand something over, and I know lots of Etsy sellers struggle with that, with
Yeah.
the ability to trust in someone else to take care of their baby, basically.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. I feel the same way. And the same thing with the podcast, too. There's a technical aspect to it, which, there are many companies that will take your audio file and then do everything and then send it right back to you. So I wouldn't have to do anything. But then I just feel like, ugh, will they know that specific point in the conversation that I said I would take out? Will they know where to start? Will they know where to end? Will they know where to put the music? And I'm just like, I'll just do it myself.
Yeah. Well,
Which-
yeah, I mean, you're the one who has that vision, and you feel like you're the only one who can execute that vision to its perfection, the way you envisioned it.
Yeah. I sometimes wonder if it's wise, though, because you can only scale so much when you're one person.
It's so true.
Another thing I wanted to talk to you about is I know you offer gift wrapping and packaging, and this is a new feature, relatively new, that Etsy instituted. How do you offer it? Do you offer it at an additional fee? And how do you make that option more enticing to buyers?
Yes, so you can always mark your order as a gift, and that just means instead of an order receipt in the order, it will be a gift receipt with a personalized message. So ordering something with gift wrap is an additional fee because it's about $3, I think. You can put it however much you want. But mine's $3, and it's just, it'll look like a brown paper package tied up with string. So it's really simple. I mean, it does take me a little extra time, but it does look really nice. And I mean, my packaging already looks pretty good. All my boxes and my envelopes and everything, I have rigid envelopes. They're white and they go with my branding, and they already look really nice. So I don't really have a lot of people who order the gift wrap, mostly in the winter around Christmas time.
Oh, right. Yeah. And how did you decide on how much you were going to charge for gift wrapping? Was that just strictly based on the cost of the wrapping materials?
So kind of, you have to think about how much time am I investing in, not only doing the actual gift wrapping, but you're investing your time researching which gift wrap you're going to offer and, ordering it and where you're going to order it from. And then working that cost also involves what are other people charging for gift wrap.
Yeah.
And I know you do need to do that sometimes to stay competitive.
Yeah. Yep. Especially around the holiday season too.
Yeah.
Now, Crystal, one of the things I'm really impressed about is something you said at the very beginning of our conversation about when you started your Etsy shop and just the determination you had to make it work because of the situation you were in and the situation that you were starting it under. What are some of the things that you can think of that you did to really set yourself up for success on Etsy?
So something that I would recommend to everybody to do is, if there is a Etsy veteran around that is willing to answer your questions or mentor you, you need to take their advice. They know what they're doing. And in the beginning, there really wasn't that much free information out there for running an Etsy shop. I mean, now there's YouTube videos and Skillshare classes and this podcast, and they're all amazing and free resources. You should definitely take advantage of them. But sometimes you just need a friend almost who can answer your questions and bounce ideas off of. And I would really recommend doing that, because a smart person will learn from their own mistakes like I did, but a wise person will learn from other people's mistakes.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Now, how would you go about recommending that someone connect with an Etsy mentor?
So I think that smaller seller groups on Facebook are really good for that. There's usually a few, top 1% Etsy sellers in there who will answer your questions. You really want to make sure, though, that the group isn't that big, because your question will get buried within the first minute of you posting it. And then you also want to make sure that you're not spending your whole day looking for an answer to your question in a Facebook group. Look for an answer to your question, search for a podcast, search for that YouTube video. There's lots of information out there, and you shouldn't source the advice that you need from one place.
Yeah. Now, you have a Facebook group on Etsy that is for makers, and one of the goals of the Facebook group is, I'm guessing, what you've just explained, that would be helpful for newer sellers who are still trying to find their feet, or people who are still just trying to figure out what the success formula for them would be.
Yes. I mean, it's very small. So chances are, if you ask a question, I'm going to be the one who responds, nice. Which is great. But also, you don't have, you want to get that information quick so that you aren't waiting for an answer. You are working on your shop. You're improving your photos. That is almost the number one thing that I would say new Etsy sellers need to do, is you really need to work on those photos.
Yeah. Yep. And yours are great, by the way. I meant to say that much earlier on. Your pictures are really good. Do you take them yourself?
I do. So I have this big sliding glass door in the back of my house, and around 4 or 5, I get really, really nice natural light coming out of there. So I'll put down a vinyl backdrop on my floor, just right on the floor, and I'll arrange everything, and I'll take all the photos that I need. And it's great doing it on the weekend, because then you have all these really great photos for your daily posts on Instagram. And you don't have to take a photo every day. You have them all lined up. But if you have any skills with, Photoshop, and I think there's a online free equivalent of that where you can apply filters or effects.
PicMonkey is what I use.
Yes, exactly. I am very proficient in Photoshop, so I created my own personalized Photoshop action sequence.
Oh, wow.
And I run all my photos through that sequence, so that no matter where I post them on the internet, you can tell that that's my photo, because it's very cohesive with all my other photos.
Yeah. Great. Now, before we move too far away from this, I just want to mention the name of Crystal's Facebook group on Etsy. It's called A Maker's Craft, and I will link directly to it. It's for makers with an entrepreneurial spirit. And as Crystal mentioned, you want to be able to ask a veteran seller who's been on the platform for a while, and who has learned things along the way, so that you're not making mistakes that you really don't have to make. And so Crystal's been selling on Etsy for since 2011. So not going on, but like 7 years now. And obviously it sounds like you're open to people asking you questions, and you don't mind helping people along the way. So I'm going to link to Crystal's Facebook group if you're struggling and you just want to connect with other sellers and who are successfully selling on Etsy and have made a business out of it. Go check out A Maker's Craft.
Definitely. And I'd also add that when you start seeing those sales coming in, set some of that money aside and invest in your shop by having a seller do a audit for your shop. Mm-hmm. Those are so helpful. They'll think of things that you never even thought of to do. They'll look at your tags. They'll make sure your SEO looks good. Mm-hmm. They'll give you tips about your photos and even your shop section, how that looks.
Yes.
It's so good. It's such a good investment.
Yeah. And don't take anything too personally, especially when it comes to the shop critiques. I think we all have room to improve, and everybody's shop, everything we do, I know is our baby, but sometimes it takes that outside eye that's not so tied to the product or, what you're doing to be able to tell you where some of your blind spots are. So I definitely believe in shop critiques as being very helpful.
I would also even say, look at what your customers are saying in their reviews and take that to heart. You kind of have to have a thick skin, especially when you get that first low review. Yeah. But look at it like, can you improve? What did they not like? Do I need to improve my shipping times or how I'm packaging things? Or maybe the lighting in my photo isn't right, and that's why they thought that they would get a color that they didn't get.
Yeah. Good information. And I think that also ties into the advice. I was going to ask you to give advice to someone, but I think what you've said just really covers that so well. And so I don't think I have anything more to add to that. Now, are there any, in addition to the tools that you've already mentioned, like the Photoshop tool and resources like Uline, are there any others that you can think of that you're using now that are helping you just run your business smoothly that you wouldn't mind sharing? Any other resources or tools?
Yeah, so if you're at a point where you are getting a lot of orders and you're printing a lot of labels, I would invest in a dedicated label printer.
Oh, yes.
And what I have right now is a Dymo 4XL, and you can get 800 labels in rolls on Amazon for $9.99. Yes. And it is so easy. It's such a time saver. So when you feel like you're at that point where you can invest in one, I would definitely get one. They are so nice. And another tool, I don't know if you mentioned it, you do mention a lot on your podcast though, is Etsy Rank.
Yeah.
I love Etsy Rank.
Yes.
And I know a lot of people go back and forth between Etsy Rank and Marmalade, but if you're just looking for the free version of either, Etsy Rank, I love the free version over Marmalade's free version. Okay,
that's great. Yes. I more and more recently, I've just been hearing much more about Etsy Rank, which I also just signed up for. And unfortunately, I haven't yet had time to fully dig in. But like you said, even just in the free version, there's so much in there. And once you sign up, you get a series of 5 emails where, and I can't remember the owner's name, I really need to have him on the podcast, sends like quick tutorials. Okay, this is a feature that's available to you. This is how you can do it. And so it gives you like a nice introduction to the platform and what you can do to get up and running. It's a really good one. I will link to that. Thank you for that.
It is. The
Yes.
I do have one last one is
Mm-hmm.
if you're looking at trends in any market, I would recommend Google Trends.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so if I type wedding cake topper into Google Trends, it's going to show me the interest over time for that phrase, but it's also going to show me the related queries at the bottom of the page. So for instance, a couple rising queries people are searching for are PS4 wedding cake topper and gamer wedding cake topper. So that shows me there's a
Really
growing need for more video game and nerdy cake toppers.
nice. Yes. Okay. I've dabbled with Google Trends before, and I've never been quite sure that I was interpreting the information accurately, but what you've just said makes sense. So you also want to look at what did you call it? Related trends?
Yeah, at the bottom. So
Mm-hmm.
when you search for something on Google Trends, scroll all the way down to the bottom, and on the right side, it'll have the related queries,
Oh,
and you
related.
want to show the rising queries, so ones that are
Okay.
rising in trends.
Oh, right. Okay, I do recall seeing that. Okay, I will link to Google Trends, or you can just search Google Trends in any search engine and use that tool. And before I forget, the Dymo label writer, the 4XL, Crystal, I love mine. I did a whole blog post about it after I bought it because it was, to date, I have to say, I think that has been the best investment I made was
Oh,
in that
it's so
label
nice.
printer.
I love just clicking the button and then it spits them all out in 20 seconds. I love it.
Yes, yes. And all you do is peel and stick. They're formatted. It looks so professional. I was kicking myself for going for so long without one.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, write it off on your taxes, you know?
Yep, that too. Okay, Crystal, before I let you go, do you have an Etsy shop shout out? This could be a seller that has helped you along the way or a shop that you enjoy shopping at or purchasing from.
Yes. So my friend Teresa owns an Etsy shop. I've known her since grade school, and she actually probably has more sales than me and more Instagram followers. I'm not jealous or anything, maybe, but she is so creative and she makes her art is so adorable and cute and stylish, and she puts it on pins and artwork you can hang on your wall and even things for your bed and swimwear for women. She's amazing. So if you want to go check her out,
Yeah.
she's at utinibikini.etsy.com.
Boutini, like Boutini.
Like Utini, like the little characters from Star Wars.
I've never watched Star Wars.
Oh no, you should watch it.
How do you spell that?
It's UTINNIBIKINI.etsy.com.
Okay, all right, great. I will make sure I link to that Utini bikini. And I just pulled up her Etsy shop. Wow. That's all I can say.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Okay, so I will link to Teresa's Etsy shop, and please go check out what she's doing, and let her know that Crystal sent you, and give her some love. Now, Crystal, if anyone wants to get in touch with you, if they have any questions, perhaps there's something we didn't cover, what's the best way that people can reach you?
Yeah, I'm really active across all my platforms. So I'm on Facebook and Instagram at Le Rustic Chic,
Okay.
or you can just go to lerusticchic.com and send me a convo on Etsy. I always get the messages on my phone, and I'm usually pretty quick to respond. So yeah, feel free.
Okay, great. And I will have links to everywhere online that you can get in touch with Crystal. They'll be in the show notes for this episode. And again, I will spell out Le Rustic Chic if you just want to hop over there right now and check it out. It's LERUSTICCHIC. Crystal, thank you so much for spending all this time talking with me. Thank you for all the information you shared, for teaching us new things and learning new ways to get the word out. You know, I loved your tip about linking Instagram and Facebook. I'm going to go and try and figure out how to do that myself. And thank you for being so generous with the information you shared, what's worked for you, and just for just being a part of this community. Thank you, Crystal.
It's my pleasure. And I just wanted to say how helpful and interesting I find this podcast. And I wanted to thank you for taking time away from your life to providing this free resource.
Oh, you are so welcome. And I thank you for listening to the podcast. I will be back next week. This episode of the podcast is brought to you by The Seller's Resource, available at thesellersresource.com. The Seller's Resource is an all audio content library of Etsy tutorials about how to sell on Etsy, but also news, updates, and information coming out from Etsy for Etsy sellers, information that you would need to be aware of or just to know to stay on top of what's going on at Etsy and with Etsy as an Etsy seller. Again, that's The Seller's Resource, available at thesellersresource.com, and there's a link to it in the show notes for this episode. Enjoy.
Thank you for listening. You can subscribe to the podcast in iTunes, and while you're there, please leave a review too. Visit convome.com to leave a comment or feedback on this episode.